Hello and what's up peeps, this is the Geek Artist back again with another video, and it's that time of the month when I review and critique artworks submitted by you guys. And this time I'll be reviewing this beautiful piece sent in by Elba Shimmer Kit. So if you want to get your artwork reviewed by me, you can directly mail it to me, or if you have an Instagram art page, you can just upload the artwork there and use the hashtag #TheGeekArtist in the description while posting, and I'll check it out and possibly review it in the next month's critique video. Alright, so let's do this. Okay, so here it is, and it's a beautiful piece like I mentioned before. I really love it, especially the scene on the left with the thunderstorm outside. It's a beautiful piece. I like the mood and the overall story that it's trying to convey. Depression versus, I guess, psychological freedom. It's a great piece. So my main issue with this is that the whole thing doesn't look well connected. There is a lack of seamlessness between the two. For example, the scene on the left is a good piece of art on its own, separately, and similarly the scene on the right, it's a beautiful scene on its own. But when you put the two of them side by side, it's like you've taken two completely separate artworks and placed them side by side like a collage, edited together. So there is a lack of proper seamless transition between the two scenes, and I feel like that a great way to do that would be to create an impact of the left scene on the right scene and an impact of the right scene on the left scene, so that way they will feel connected in a better way. So the scene that we have on the right, it's a bright, properly exposed exterior scene with a lot of light. It'll be relatively easy to show an impact of that kind of lighting on the scene on the left. So we can easily cast some warm yellowish or greenish color on the first scene. But the first scene doesn't have any strong primary source of light in it, and it's difficult to show some impact of that scene on the scene on the right because it is already properly lit. So that's going to be a challenge. So let's see what we can do with this, how we can improve this. So I'm going to start with a new layer and just start painting. I'm going to try to create a proper transition here. So one thing that I notice is that the flow of the curtain is sort of aligning with the flow of the foliage that we have on the scene on the right. So we can create a transition, like the curtains are transforming into these foliages. So I'm going to pick some color of the foliage, some green, and paint it on the left side, and I'm going to pick the color of the curtain and paint a bit on the right side and create a good blend of these two colors to show this nice flow and transition between the curtain and the foliage. I'm also trying to sort of extend the hair as well along with the curtain, transitioning to the right scene. I'm trying to paint on the black areas on the top to feel some hint of color over there, and I'm going to turn it on and off to see what difference this new seamless transition makes. And now I'm going to paint some highlight on the girl's hair or the flower tiara she's wearing on her head. Some of the warm green colors on the hair and on the blue flower that's facing the right side. Just some subtle highlights to create that connection that they sort of belong in the same universe, even though they belong from separate space, but certain lighting effects are leaking from one scene to the other. Now I'm gonna try to focus on the scene on the left and try to improve it separately. So what I can see is that the light source outside, which is a bright, strong lightning, is going to cast a lot of light. So right now, the overall contrast in this scene is missing, and we can do that with some very strong, bright white light. That's a result of the lightning outside. So I'm casting this very bright white light on the girl's arm and her hair and the flowers to kind of make the character pop out of the background more and put a lot more emphasis on her, and also create a beautiful mood with some contrast. I'm painting some of that light on these secondary objects also, furnitures and her legs, and as you can see how it creates a difference instantly. I'm going to cast some rim light on the curtain as well, because this is a very strong light. The lighting outside is going to have obvious impact on a lot of the things in the scene. Now I'm going to try to make this top area of the window a bit darker to again create some contrast, to separate the window from the sky, which is obviously pretty well lit. Now that we have an overall better contrast in the whole scene, just with some pure black and white. That's all I did. And I'm gonna draw some extension of the lightning behind the curtain. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to sort of exaggerate it with some glow. I'm gonna add some glow on the areas that are pretty well lit to create this cool mood. I'm using a soft round brush with very low opacity so that it doesn't look abrupt. And yeah, there's the before and after. And now I'm moving on to the scene on the right. So what I feel it needs right now is a better foreground. So with a darker shade of the green that we are seeing in the foreground, I'm going to create some immediate objects, maybe a cave, maybe the sides of a cave that's visible. Maybe she's coming out of this cave and she's stepping into the wilderness outside that's filled with joy and happiness. So some hints of the cave that she's stepping out of, some stones in the immediate foreground. With a smaller brush, I'm painting some highlights on the rocks. Nothing too bright because we don't want to create a very strong contrast, because this is a negative region. We want to block this part out. We don't want this part to draw too much attention. So whatever highlight is going to fall on these rocks are going to be very subtle. Nothing too bright, because again, we don't want any high contrast in this preferably darker area. Now I'm going to try to create some interesting shapes on the top. So I'm going to draw some hanging vines and make them a little curvy. And for the sake of having a better design, I'm not going to make them all very even. I'm going to add some uneven volume. And with a smaller brush, I'm trying to draw some creepers around them. And maybe some moss hanging from these vines, or even smaller vines hanging from them. And to balance the weight, I'm not going to draw vines as big as this on the left side. I'm going to draw some smaller vines so that there's a good balance of weight. Now I'm painting some highlights on the vines on the right. Again, we don't want too much contrast over here, so some very subtle highlights. Now what I feel is the edges of the waterfall seems a bit too sharp, so I'm gonna gently paint over the edges to add this blurry effect so that it feels like water and not like a sharp cutout. It should feel like that it should have that transparency of water. And maybe we can add some rocks, a better design for the waterfall. So the corner or the edge of the waterfall can have the big boulders and the water will be falling from between them. So the space right underneath these rocks are not gonna have a lot of water. They're gonna have some shadow, and some of the mountain or hill underneath are gonna be visible. So that's what I'm doing for the rocks. And I'm lowering the value of this area because this is pretty far away. I don't want them to draw too much attention with higher contrast, so I'm adjusting the values to make it lighter. Now I'm drawing some highlights on the water ripples in the midground, and I guess this is a foreground object. I'm going to draw another, possibly a foreground rock that's pointing towards our subject area, which is probably the waterfall. So I'm going to draw some rock-like formations on the left here that are going to point towards the subject. And similarly on the right side, I'm not going to draw another pointy rock. Instead, I'm going to draw some shrubs or grasses that are again pointing towards the subject area. And these are all leading lines. I have talked about these multiple times in my previous composition digital painting videos. So leading lines are important. I'm going to draw some finer details like smaller leaves for better design. I'm going to add some interesting shapes on the left edge of the cave, some smaller leaves and vines on both sides. Okay, so that's what we have. Now I'm gonna cast some overall warm yellowish light in the background, and to try and enhance the mood, I'm gonna try to paint some of that on the left scene as well to show a better impact of the right scene on the left scene. And now to pull the attention away from the foreground, I'm gonna draw some subtle vignette effect on the lower part of the second scene. I'm doing it in a multiply blending mode and some cool colors. I'm pushing it towards a more warm greenish tone, and then I'm going to erase a bit of it that's falling near the water and the character to sort of not make that area too dull or dark. I'm painting some more vignette effect in areas I don't want too much attention to go, making certain areas dark selectively. And now with some color balance adjustment layer, I'm making the scene on the right more warm. I'm masking it out so that the warm feeling does not leak over to the scene on the left. And with another color adjustment layer, I'm gonna make the left composition a bit more bluish, and I'm gonna erase that bluish effect from the scene on the right because we want it to be warm and not cool. So here's what it looks. I'm going to turn off the layer. As you can see the difference. Then I feel like I can add some stronger highlight on the flowers in the left scene and some reflective highlight on the hair as well to make it seem more glossy. Now some final quick post-processing tricks. I'm going to add the chromatic aberration effect, split the channels and move them around a bit to get those beautiful RGB aberration effects. And then finally add some noise. So this is what we have. I'm going to put them all inside a group and I'm going to switch them on and off to show you the difference this Paintover made to the original piece. So that's it. Now here's a quick before and after transition. And so that's it for this video. I hope you got to learn something new from this. And keep submitting your artworks, whether you're emailing me or you're uploading to Instagram and using the hashtag #TheGeekArtist. And yeah, it can be your artwork on the next month's video. So that's it for now, guys. See you on the next one. Peace.